They didn't just skip my husband's funeral. They threw a graduation party in our house while I was burying him in the rain. I'm not exaggerating. I was standing over his flag-draped coffin, soaked to the bone, clutching our daughter's hand so tight she winced. And meanwhile, my sister-in-law was popping champagne under the same roof where James and I used to fall asleep whispering about our future. My name is Eleanor Bishop. I'm a 34-year-old widow, and 10 days ago, I buried the only man I've ever loved. James was a decorated U.S. Army medic, killed in a roadside bombing while deployed overseas. He'd survived 3 tours. But this one took him. We met in college. He made me laugh like no one else. And when he enlisted, I stood by him, proud and terrified. Every time he came home, it felt like I got my heart back. Our daughter, Tessa, is 7 now. She was his shadow, always asking questions about his medals and why he wore so many patches. He'd always kneel down and say, "These aren't for fighting. They're for the people I saved." When the knock came at 3 a.m., I already knew. Military chaplain, 2 soldiers in uniform. My world folded in on itself. For the next few days, I was a ghost. Funeral arrangements, flag coordination, burial site approval. Everyone said they'd be there. "Anything you need, Eleanor." That's what my mother-in-law Diane said. That's what his sister Cassidy texted. Then silence. 3 days before the funeral, I sent out the final details. Church address. Time. Military honors confirmed. Cassidy replied with one word. Okay. No, I'm sorry. No, we'll be there. Just okay. The day of the service, rain poured down like the sky itself was grieving. Rows of empty chairs lined the front, the ones reserved for family. Diane and Cassidy never showed. As the last note of taps faded, I sat in my car, soaked and shaking. That's when my phone buzzed. Instagram. Cassidy had posted a picture of her daughter's graduation cake. Caption: "Celebrating new beginnings. So proud of my baby girl. Your family first, blessed." In the background of the photo, I recognized the kitchen. My kitchen. The granite countertops James had picked out. The cabinets we painted together. The wall where we marked Tessa's height every birthday. They'd used the spare key James gave them last year, just in case. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through more photos. Family smiling, balloons, wine, laughter. And behind them, on our living room shelf, his medals. The bronze star. The purple heart. Displayed like party decor. I called Diane. She picked up after 2 rings, her voice chipper like she'd just woken from a lovely nap. "Eleanor," she said, "we thought you'd understand. Cassidy's worked so hard. We couldn't miss her graduation. James would have wanted us to celebrate her too." I said nothing, just listened to the static roar of betrayal in my ears. "You've always been emotional," she added with a sigh. "Try to focus on Tessa now. That's what James would want." I hung up. Back home, I found the front door unlocked. There were champagne stains on the carpet, a high heel abandoned by the stairs, one of James's service jackets tossed over the couch like an afterthought. Tessa sat on the floor of her room, hugging his uniform. "They took the coin box," she said. Her voice was small. I froze. James had a collection of challenge coins, military tokens awarded for acts of excellence and bravery. Some of them irreplaceable. One was given to him personally by his commanding officer in Afghanistan after he saved 2 lives under fire. Gone. I walked to our bedroom, opened the closet. His duffel bag was ripped open, empty. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3:12 a.m., I did what I hadn't done in years. I opened eBay, and there it was. Listing: Rare Military Challenge Coin Collection. Excellent condition. Ships from Colorado. The seller's name was Cassidy B. 78. Same town, same initials, same betrayal. I stared at the listing, heart pounding, as the bid price climbed past $800. And I knew this wasn't just about a party. This was theft. This was desecration. And I was going to make sure the whole world knew exactly what they had done. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw James's hands, those steady, calloused hands, carefully polishing each coin, telling Tessa where it came from, who it honored. He treated those coins like sacred history, and now they were sitting on some stranger's bidding page, sandwiched between used sneakers and vintage lunchboxes. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from my laptop screen. The bid had climbed to $1,200. She was profiting off his death. The next morning, I drove to the nearest VA office. I didn't have an appointment. I just walked in, holding a printout of the listing, and said, "I need someone to help me stop this." The man behind the counter looked like he'd seen everything, but even he flinched when he read the description and saw the username. "Your sister-in-law?" he asked quietly. I nodded. He made a few calls, took down everything, and told me it would be forwarded to the Department of Veterans Affairs Fraud and Misuse Division. He even connected me with a military legal advisor who offered to help pro bono once I showed him James's name and service number. I thought that would be the worst of it. I was wrong. When I got home, I found a white envelope stuck in the crack of my front door. No return address. Inside was a printed photo, Cassidy standing in my kitchen, holding James's folded flag, grinning. Scrawled across the back in red marker, "You're not the only one who lost him." I couldn't breathe. I called Diane, trembling. She didn't answer. But a few minutes later, I got a text. "You're not well, Eleanor." Cassidy was just trying to preserve his memory. "We're concerned about Tessa living in that environment. Maybe it's time we discussed custody." Custody. I dropped the phone. They weren't just stealing from James. They were trying to take Tessa. That night, I called my lawyer, Karen. She'd helped us draft our will before James deployed. "Do you still have a copy?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "Why?" I explained everything, the coins, the photo, the custody threat. There was a pause on the line. Then her voice hardened. "Eleanor, that house is still legally yours. James left it to you and Tessa. You need to act now." Karen pulled up the property records. Sure enough, my name was still on the deed. James had transferred it to me before deployment, just in case. Cassidy didn't own a damn thing. By the next morning, Karen had filed a cease and desist order and contacted the platform hosting the auction. The listing was removed within hours. But Cassidy wasn't done. That evening, my neighbor Mrs. Langford knocked on my door, her brow furrowed. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "I didn't want to get involved, but I think you should see this." She handed me a printed Facebook post. Cassidy had uploaded a new video, her in tears, clutching James's folded flag, saying, "Eleanor's not coping well. She's unstable. She's locking us out of family property. James would be heartbroken." And people believed her. The comments were flooded with sympathy, old family friends, distant cousins, even James's high school coach, all piling on. I felt like I was screaming into a void. Until I checked my email. Subject line: unauthorized attempt to change Tessa's school emergency contacts. My stomach dropped. Someone had called her school, claimed to be her legal guardian, and asked to update the pickup list. The secretary flagged it because the caller sounded unsure and couldn't answer Tessa's birthday. The name they gave? Diane Bennett. That was the moment something inside me snapped. They weren't just trying to take things. They were trying to erase me. That night, I went to the spare key box in my closet, the one James had installed after his first deployment. Inside was a flash drive. He'd labeled it, "In case of anything." I plugged it into my laptop, and there it was, a video recording. James, sitting in uniform, staring straight into the camera. "If you're watching this, Elle, something went wrong. I need you to know, you're the strongest person I've ever known. If anyone ever questions your place in Tessa's life, this video is your proof. You are her mother. You are everything." I couldn't stop crying. But beneath the tears, something else was building. Not grief, not fear, fire. I backed up the video, uploaded it to 3 separate drives, emailed copies to Karen, the school principal, and the VA. Then I opened my security app. The motion sensor had gone off at 2:17 a.m. The footage showed Cassidy, dressed in black, creeping up my driveway with a crowbar in hand. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about grief anymore. This was war. I watched Cassidy creep toward my house on the security feed, crowbar in hand, like some budget movie villain who didn't realize the cameras were in night vision. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. From rage. This was the third time she'd tried something. First, she sold James's coins. Then she tried to change Tessa's school contacts. And now, she was literally trying to break into my home. I didn't call the cops this time, not yet. Instead, I called Karen. My lawyer answered after the first ring. "She's trying to break in," I said, my voice like ice. "You got footage?" she asked. "Clear as day." "Good," Karen replied. "We need a paper trail longer than her lies. Let her keep digging her own grave." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with the lights off, just watching the driveway from the window. She didn't try to enter. Maybe she saw the cameras or lost her nerve. But she was out there, watching, waiting. The next morning, I filed a formal police report and turned in the footage. The officer didn't say much, but his face said it all. The investigation was officially open. Then came the news from the VA. They were suspending Diane and Cassidy from all survivor benefits related to James's service until the investigation concluded. 2 hours later, Cassidy posted another video. Tears. Shaky voice. James's medals lined up behind her. Somehow, she still had a few left. "She's keeping Tessa from us," she sobbed. "We just want what's best for her. James would have wanted his daughter raised by family who truly care." I was done playing nice. I posted James's video, the one he left for me on the flash drive, on my own social media. No dramatic music, no edits. Just James in uniform, saying my name, calling me Tessa's mother, his wife, his everything. He ended it with one line. "If you're trying to challenge Eleanor's place in our daughter's life, stop. You're wrong, and you're going to lose." It spread fast. Within hours, the comments under Cassidy's video flipped. People demanded answers. How could she sell his medals? Why wasn't she at the funeral? Why was she trying to take a child from her mother? That night, Diane called me. I didn't pick up. Then came the knock at my door. Not Cassidy, not Diane. Child Protective Services. My stomach turned to stone. The woman introduced herself politely, said she'd received an anonymous tip about emotional instability and unsafe conditions for a minor. She had to do a welfare check. Tessa sat at the kitchen table, coloring. I let the woman in. She looked around. No mess, no yelling. Just a quiet house filled with James's photos and Tessa's drawings. She asked Tessa a few questions. Tessa, bless her brave little heart, answered with complete calm. Then she turned to me and asked, "Is this because Aunt Cassidy lied again?" The CPS worker looked at me. "I think we're done here." But it didn't end there. The next morning, I got a call from the hospital where James used to volunteer when he was on leave. One of the nurses, his friend, sounded rattled. "Eleanor," she said, "I just saw Cassidy here. She was talking to our admin staff about setting up a memorial scholarship in her name. Said she was James's widow." I froze. "What?" "She said you were too emotionally unstable to handle it. She even showed them an edited version of that video James made. Cut out your name, twisted the whole thing." I nearly dropped the phone. That was the final straw. I called Karen again. "We're going nuclear," I said. She didn't even hesitate. By afternoon, the lawsuit was filed. Defamation, identity fraud, property damage, attempted interference with legal custody. We also sent cease and desist letters to every institution Cassidy had contacted. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. A week later, Karen called me, her voice strangely tense. "You might want to sit down," she said. I did. "We got a court subpoena today. Cassidy's lawyer has filed a countersuit, claiming you forged James's will." My jaw dropped. "She's saying you altered the beneficiary documents, that James actually left the house to her, and that she has the original copy." I stared at the wall, my heart racing. "But that's impossible," I whispered. "James gave me the original. He made the changes himself before his last deployment. Karen, you saw him sign it." "I know," she said, "but if she can produce a document that looks older, it could get messy." I couldn't speak, because suddenly it hit me. That day, Cassidy found James's old army jacket in my garage. She hadn't just been looking for keepsakes. She'd been looking for documents. Comment the number 1 if you want to see how I proved the will was fake and finally exposed her lies. I didn't sleep the night the subpoena came. Cassidy was accusing me of forging James's will, the one he signed in front of our lawyer in her office with a notary present. She claimed to have the original version that left everything to her: the house, the military memorabilia, even partial guardianship over Tessa. It was insane. But legally, it was dangerous. Karen moved fast. She pulled the time-stamped video of James signing the updated will in her office. She collected notary stamps, email chains, backup documents stored in her encrypted drive. We had the truth. We had proof. But we didn't have time, because Cassidy wasn't fighting fair. The hospital called again. She'd already submitted her fake will to the board for her James Bennett Memorial Scholarship, complete with a speech she gave, on camera, where she claimed she was the grieving widow, and I had spiraled into instability. The fact that she used my husband's name, his death, and my child's grief as a PR opportunity sent a fire through my veins. That's when I decided, no more playing defense. It was time to strike back. I filed for a temporary injunction, blocking Cassidy from using James's name, image, or likeness in any public capacity. The court granted it within 24 hours. Then, I contacted a local reporter, a woman I knew from my days working at the community center. I didn't give her a sob story. I gave her evidence. Security footage of Cassidy trying to break into my house. Screenshots of her eBay listings selling James's medals. Email from the school warning about Diane's custody stunt. The CPS report, closing the case due to false accusations. And finally, James's own video, the one he recorded for me. The article dropped 3 days later. Widow under attack. Family tries to steal fallen soldier's legacy. It exploded. Hundreds of shares. Comments of outrage. Veterans groups picking it up nationwide. Cassidy's name trended locally. So did mine. For once, people saw me. The real story. The mother. The wife. The woman who buried her husband alone while his family planned parties and plotted control. Then came the fallout. Cassidy's job put her on unpaid leave pending internal review. Diane's church group disbanded their prayer fundraiser after discovering she was funneling donations meant for Tessa's care into her own bank account. And the hospital? They scrapped the scholarship, publicly apologized, offered to rename the pediatric wing in James's honor, under my oversight. Cassidy, of course, didn't go quietly. She showed up on my lawn, yelling at the reporters camped out on the curb. "This is harassment," she screamed. "She's twisting everything. She forged that video." Police escorted her off the property. Again. That night, Karen called. "You're going to want to hear this." Apparently, during a deposition, Cassidy's lawyer let something slip. Carelessly, like a dog chasing its own tail. "She'll never admit what really happened in that hospital room." Karen pressed him. "What do you mean?" He went silent. That was all Karen needed. We subpoenaed Cassidy's hospital records, specifically her location and visitor logs from the night James died. And what we found stopped me cold. She wasn't out of state that week like she claimed. She was in town. In fact, she signed into the hospital the same night James coded. And she wasn't there to visit. She was recorded, on security footage, entering James's room 3 minutes before the alarms went off. He had been stable all day. Then suddenly, everything spiraled. I felt my lungs freeze. Karen's voice was grim. "We need to let the authorities take it from here. This isn't just fraud anymore." I stood in my living room, staring at the paused security image. Cassidy, in his room. Her face calm, gloved hands reaching into the drawer by his bed. James had told me once, during a late-night call from deployment. If anything ever happens to me and it doesn't make sense, don't let it go, Elle. Don't be polite about it. I had no idea what I was about to uncover. The day the hospital called me back, my hands were already shaking before I picked up the phone. The risk team had completed their investigation. Their voice was cautious, professional. Too professional. We reviewed the footage you submitted and cross-referenced it with our internal logs. Ms. Cassidy Bennett did, in fact, enter your husband's room unsupervised at 2:07 a.m. James's code blue was recorded at 2:10. Silence. Was she authorized to be there? I asked, even though I already knew. She was not on the approved visitor list, and she used a stolen badge to access the floor. My stomach dropped. They wouldn't say what she did, HIPAA and liability and all that. But the implication was clear. Something happened in that room, something Cassidy did. The hospital passed everything to the police. From that moment, I became less of a grieving widow and more of a witness. Detectives showed up at my house 2 days later. I handed them the footage, the badge number records, even an old voicemail where Cassidy bragged about getting the goodbye James never gave her. She wasn't grieving. She was obsessed. And when she couldn't control him in life, she tried to control how he was remembered in death. 3 weeks later, Cassidy was arrested. Official charges: identity fraud, defamation, attempted custodial interference, and unlawful access to a restricted medical area. They couldn't prove intent for what happened in that hospital room, but the combination of everything else? She was denied bail. Diane tried to plead ignorance, claimed she had no idea Cassidy had gone that far. But screenshots told another story. Emails between them, voicemails, a photo of them holding a printed copy of the fake will weeks before James's funeral. She lost her place in the church committee. Her friends stopped returning her calls. Her name started to show up on the do not contact list at every charity she once supported. The woman who once tried to paint me as unstable now had to explain to neighbors why her daughter was in county jail and why her house was being seized to cover legal costs. Meanwhile, I kept my promise to James. I didn't just protect our daughter, I protected his legacy. The VA awarded James a posthumous honor. I was asked to speak at the ceremony. I stood there in a blue dress Tessa picked out, holding her hand as I spoke into the microphone. My husband gave everything for this country, and when grief threatened to tear our family apart, it was his voice, his faith in me, that brought clarity. Some people wear masks for years, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever. It always finds a way to breathe. The room stood in silence. Then, applause. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me. She was one of the nurses from the pediatric wing, the very wing James had once volunteered in. "We've renamed the art therapy room," she said, smiling through tears. "It's now the James Bennett Center for Resilience, because of you." I thought I would cry, but I didn't, because for the first time in months, I felt whole. Not healed, not the same, but whole. Back home, I unpacked the last of James's things. His medals, recovered, every one of them, were now displayed in a glass case above the fireplace. Tessa's drawing of him, caped like a superhero, framed beside them. Later that evening, my lawyer Karen called. "They settled," she said. "Diane's agreed to drop all claims, leave the house permanently, and pay restitution." I leaned back in my chair, letting the words sink in. Restitution, justice, peace. Cassidy would likely serve time. And even if she didn't, she'd never recover from the exposure. No scholarships, no fake widowhood, no more rewriting James's story. I had reclaimed what was mine. Not just the house, not just the legacy, but my voice. As I tucked Tessa into bed that night, she whispered, "Daddy would be proud of you." I kissed her forehead, my throat tight. "No," I said quietly. "He is proud. And now so am I. Because this time, I didn't let them rewrite the ending. I wrote it myself,